My name is Alex Boros. I'm starting off by interviewing Clifford Pano about the environment and the movement to fix the environment and to protect it from damage. So, Cliff, what was your involvement when it came to protecting the environment? Where did you first start protecting it?
Well, it's been a long time coming, but I actually remember, since we're going back to talking about the 60s and 70s, I remember in school, there was, they called it ecology back then. They called it environment. I haven't heard that word in a long time. But the ecology movement started. We had a class, I know it was an art class, and we were asked to do some kind of painting or emblem representing the ecology movement. And I still remember to this day the thing I drew. I drew like a triangle where you had smokestacks and factory smokestacks being pushed out, and then green and blue. So the green representing trees and the blue sky pushing the smokestacks out. So, and then the college movement actually had a symbol, it was a lowercase e. So I put the lowercase e in that drawing. And I still remember that drawing to this day. So, and that had to be back in high school, I'm guessing. Um, I've been, I guess since then I've been somewhat passionate about the environment. Um, I have been a member of Greenpeace for I've been a contributor and a member of Greenpeace for God's got at least 20 years.
All right. So you say that this started in high school. Did you take any classes focusing on like the environment or the ecology of the planet?
Not that I can recall, not back then. There was very little involvement back at that time. It was a very new subject, a very new awareness. I mean, you get in your car, drive your car around, nobody thought about really air pollution and water pollution until until things start to happen that people start to look and say, hey, you know what, our rivers are starting to get polluted, people are starting to get sick from air pollution. So it was very, it was really at the beginning at that time, so there weren't any classes that I was
Would you say that people even had an idea that air pollution was real or was even there?
I think they began to, yeah. I think, again, I think, talking about another word that was invented back then, from what I can remember, the word smog came into being around that time, late 60s, early 70s, which was, I guess somebody combined smoke and fog, which is kind of what it looked like. And awareness, I think, began to appear in news and other outlets of how people got their news back then of smog and air pollution issues.
So did you see that the growth of the ecology movement was all of a sudden or was it a very long drawn out process?
I think it's been long and drawn out. I mean, if you talk about from the '60s till now, I think it was sort of long and drawn out. Um, I think air pollution and water pollution were the two main things that people could sink their teeth into. They can understand that, hey, I don't want to be drinking water that's polluted, and I don't want to be breathing air that's polluted. Since then, it has just grown leaps and bounds into all kinds of issues brought to mind.
You say that people were recognizing the air pollution, the water pollution. Did they have any plans or ideas of how to stop this? I mean, did they start recommending renewable energy in cars, for example?
Back then, I don't think I was not aware. I didn't see a lot of that in the news about renewable energy or electric cars. I now, having done some research, I believe the technology was there, but nobody was really talking about it. I think um, the first attack to stop air pollution, water pollution was let's do something with the smokestacks. Let's put scrubbers in the smokestacks. Let's begin to try to reduce air pollution. We need to stop draining chemicals and whatnot into the rivers. So that's where the concentration was at that point. Was that the point of the pollution, and not even so much as energy savings or anything like that. I think that didn't come until later.
Now, were these companies with the smokestacks and all getting involved in the ecology movement, or did it rely on the government regulation of protecting the environment?
Well, I think it relied on grassroots movement. I don't even know if I would say that the government was involved all that much. It wasn't until I think at least 10 years later we started to see laws being passed by the government. The Environmental Protection Agency came into being. The law to protect endangered species act. That was much later. So I think it was a grassroots movement back then. I don't think the companies, I don't think they even thought about it until people started writing about it in newspapers and sending letters, and people started like that, and we might have a problem.
Do you feel that if the government had been more involved then, that we wouldn't have the issues we have now?
Uh,
Or was the
yes.
government right focusing on the Cold War first?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously there's a lot of issues. I mean, there's the Vietnam War still going on. Certainly a lot of things that the government was involved in. So I think in terms of priorities, it probably wasn't a big priority back then. Um, I think, really to sum up my answer, I think that we need a very strong coalition of government and corporate forces to begin to address environmental issues. That's what's going to help.
Did do you think that the environmental movement, the ecology movement, was able to latch on to other movements at the time, like the civil rights movement? Did they support like did you see that they were latching onto other things, or was it just their own individual movement?
I think it was their own individual movement. I didn't. I don't recall seeing a lot of people crossing the lines or being well involved in the civil rights movement, so therefore I should also be involved in the environmental movement or ecology movement. Um, so no, I didn't see a lot of that going on. Although I thought it might have been helpful.
All right. I know we've only been focusing on the United States recently, but did you see an international movement to support the ecology, or was it just focused on the United States, based on what you saw?
From what I remember, again, I could be wrong, but from what I could see, it was mostly the United States. I mean, you have to understand that if we're talking in the early 1970s, for instance, the United States was by far the most industrialized country in the world. I can't even, other than Europe maybe, there probably weren't many other countries that were creating the kind of pollution that we were, because we were leading the world in industry and output. So,
So do you think the United States should feel responsible for fixing, like the problem we created, we should fix it, basically?
well, that's a complicated question. The environment is a global issue. We know that now. Unfortunately, I think the United States should lead. I think the fact, and not so much out of guilt, but just out of because of our prowess and our what this used to be our leadership in engineering and thinking outside the box. I think it's because of that, not so much the guilt, is that we should lead a movement to begin to address drastic environmental issues, but they are global. They are global. And if they're not addressed at a global level, then we don't have much of a getting fixed.
All right, so let's go back to the past here. We saw a major innovation in like pesticides was DDT. Do you feel that this innovation was a bad thing? That in terms of that it hurt the environment more, so it should not have been implemented?
You're talking about DDT as the innovation?
Yeah, the DDT was an innovation at
Right.
the time.
Okay.
Was it wrong because it hurt the environment more than it actually protected anybody else?
I think in the end, yes, it was. I mean, there's DDT is one example. I have to admit, I had to go and do some research on that. I mean, I do remember the issue being in the news. Um, Asbestos is the same thing. I mean, in the construction industry, they thought asbestos was a great thing. It was a fire. It helped to keep fires under control in buildings, and everybody thought, oh, this is great. Nobody really knew the damage that asbestos caused to human beings. So, in the end, looking back, yes, it was a lot more harmful than it was helpful.
Okay. Did do you think that some of the studies about DDT at the time may have been exaggerated, the same way we saw with tobacco studies saying tobacco is healthy for you? Do you feel that DDT, the people against it or even for it, might have exaggerated their statements,
Um,
or even
I,
just about the environment in
yeah,
general?
yeah. I don't know if I could answer that question authoritatively. I can say this, that if, they say with a smoke is fire. If there's, what I saw in my research is that um, people start to raise issues about DDT, and following that, there was a group of scientists that got together and they began studying it, and they came to the conclusion that yes, there was a problem. So, and again, I'm going to compare it again to asbestos. When you see something that could be a problem like that, I think it needs to be investigated. And in the end, if we can come up with alternatives to these kinds of chemicals, that you very well end up saving lives.
Okay, so let's now look at the present. Would you say that what the actions in the international community, the United Nations, the EPA, that what they're doing right now is enough, or do you suggest even more could
I
be
don't,
implemented?
to be honest, my personal opinion, I don't think it's nearly enough. I think we're in deep, deep trouble. And when I say we, the planet,
Yeah, the
I'm talking
planet.
about the United States, I'm talking about the planet, is in very deep trouble. I attended, one of my hobbies is astronomy, and I attended a lecture a few years back, and the scientist at the time was talking about the planet Venus. And we talked about the chemical reactions that over millions of years caused Venus to be the kind of planet it is now, which is totally engulfed in poisonous gas that nothing could survive in. Um, and I think what he was getting at is that if we on planet Earth, if we get to a certain point, it's called the point of no return. And that's pretty scary. So I think we need to push alternative energy, conservation, all that stuff. And I think we need to do it drastically and very soon. And again, we, I mean the planet.
All right. So let's focus on you a little bit. You said you were involved in Greenpeace for a while, or you're still a member rather. What specifically did you participate in with Greenpeace? Like one rally that you went to specifically, or just anything in general?
Well, actually, maybe I misled you. I haven't been an active member of Greenpeace. I've been a contributory
Okay.
member. I guess I have written letters and emails to politicians on many environmental issues, not just initiated by Greenpeace. I mean, I'm sure you know all the groups. There's the Sierra Club, the Environmental Defense Fund. Greenpeace, I guess that always sticks out of my mind. I always admired the Greenpeace activists, the people who did go out, because they literally at times put their lives on the line. In fact, there was a case where a Greenpeace ship was bombed, and the people on the ship were killed by the French government forces in the South Pacific because the French were trying to test a nuclear weapon in the South Pacific, and Greenpeace went out there with their ship to stop them, and those people ended up killed. So I mean, that's a drastic
Yeah.
example, but there's a lot of other active members of Greenpeace who have, they study the science, they know what they're doing, they know where to put themselves to try to stop environmental disasters. They put themselves on the line. They ended up serving jail time. Um, we're trying to at least raise awareness to the environment. So I admire it.
All right. Do you have any other statements about the environmental movement that you noticed throughout your whole lifetime?
Um, that's a tough one.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a very generalized question. Again, as I just said, there's a lot of different environmental organizations now. To me, in my opinion, they're all good. They're all doing good things. I would hope that the movement can unite itself a little bit better and become stronger, and make people aware that there's a very important balance between jobs, the economy, and the environment. The environment feeds us all. And if the environment goes, there will be no productivity, there will be no jobs, and people need to understand that.
So, in the value of lives versus jobs, we should protect the environment to protect those lives.
No, it's not what I said.
All right.
Let me take it one step further. I believe that there are many jobs and possible productive economies in the new alternative energy fields. So I think that what we need to do is we need education of our school children, high school children, and college students is extremely important. I don't think the United States education system is doing enough to prepare children who will be going into the workforce on engineering issues that we can use, engineering know-how that we can use to both help the environment and create the new jobs in the 21st century.
So basically, the green energy movement is beneficial in all aspects of the human life. In terms of lives, jobs, economy, everything will be boosted by focusing on green
That's
energy.
my belief, yes.
All right, sorry for the misunderstanding.
That's it.
All right, so thank you for the interview. Any last words about the environment?
No, I think I've talked enough. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time.